Spartans! Every breath that you have taken has led you to this moment. Every drop of blood, sweat, and tear, all of it has led to where you stand right now! The Persians come to make slaves of us all. I have a better idea. I say we drench the gods with their blood! What say you, Spartans? For our sons! For our daughters! For Sparta!
Leonidas I will forever be known to history as the legendary King of Sparta, who valiantly defended the Hot Gates of Thermopylae with a small host of Greek soldiers against the overwhelming Persian forces of Xerxes. He embodies the martyr willing to die for his beliefs, embodies the ruler who leads from the front, the warrior who shows no fear from sword, nor spear, nor arrows. Centuries of popular culture have glorified his achievements, but these almost always centre around Thermopylae and the now near mythical accomplishments of the so-called 300 Spartans, and sometimes giving a polite shout-out to the other Greek soldiers alongside them. In this video we look back on Leonidas as king, and what we know of his life before Thermopylae. What sort of upbringing did he have? What sort of king was he? And was he always a man to admire? Why don't we go ahead and find out? I'll start with a very quick introduction of how Sparta was ruled, because this helps us fill in the gaps of Leonidas' early life. Way back in the mythological age, Menelaus was king of Sparta. The throne was then passed down to his son Orestes, then his grandson Tisamenos. But during the latter's reign, 3 great-great-grandchildren of Heracles decided that the Peloponnesus, which included Sparta, was theirs by right of being descended from Heracles. So together, these Heraclidae conquered the lands ruled by the descendants of Agamemnon and Menelaus, Mycenae, Argos and Sparta. The campaign was a success, but the brother meant to rule Sparta, Aristodemos, died before they saw the victory through. So it happened that his twin sons, Eurysthenes and Procles, shared the Spartan throne together. And for the next 750 years, Sparta would be co-ruled by 2 kings at the same time, the descendants of Eurysthenes and Procles. The first line of kings would become the Achaemenid dynasty, named for its second king, Agis. The second line of kings was the Eurypontid dynasty, named for its third king, Eurypontus. It's usually held that the Achaemenid king was slightly more senior than the Eurypontid king. And a few generations later, the ephors were created. While the kings ruled by blood, the ephors were elected annually and held considerable power in the state. They checked the power of the kings, as well as ensure things could get done when they either disagreed with each other or were away on campaign. So with that brief context now out the way, let's go back to Leonidas. He was born into strange circumstances. His father, Anaxandridas, was the Achaemenid king, but after many years with his wife had not borne any children. Because of this, the powerful ephor Chelon engineered the decision to have him marry another woman, related to Chelon, shock, in the hopes that she would give birth to sons. And indeed she did, one called Cleomenes. A king with 2 wives was already unprecedented in Sparta, but Anaxandridas' first wife then went on to give birth to 3 more sons, Dorieus, Leonidas, and Cleombrotus, just to complicate things further. Leonidas was the 3rd youngest of the 4 sons. This meant that there was no guarantee he'd be king. Cleomenes was the heir apparent, with Dorieus next in line if anything happened to Cleomenes. In their youth, Cleomenes used his birthright to avoid the brutal military training of the agoge, the only Spartan able to do so, while Dorieus was still required to undergo it. This too contributed to mounting tensions between the 2 families of Anaxandridas. Who held the stronger claim? Cleomenes, the first son of the second wife, who preferred philosophy to combat, or Dorieus, the eldest son of the first wife, who ran the gauntlet of Sparta's revered agoge. Cleomenes was eventually made king on Anaxandridas' death, and Dorieus, as Herodotus records it, heavy with rage, sailed off to Libya. Hoia da Bareos Perron, apie esten Libyen da Ploia, to try and found a colony. He failed and then tried again in Sicily, but died there at the hands of the Carthaginians. This would make Leonidas the new heir to the Achaemenid throne. Now, Leonidas would have been about 16 years old when Cleomenes was made king, and not yet halfway through the agoge. At this age, he'd be one of the paidiskoi, mixing with older Spartan soldiers and undergoing rigorous physical training. And in 3 more years, he'd be officially ready to join the army, though it's possible his royal status or particular abilities allowed him some flexibility or fast-tracking in this regard. We also know that Leonidas was a fan of poetry in his own way. Maybe it started in his youth, since Spartan poetry tended to revolve around the military and the accompanying war music was part of the agoge training. We do know that when he was king, he was asked what he thought of the old Spartan poet Turtaios, and replied, "Agathos neon psukas kakanen," an excellent one to spur the souls of the young to slay. By the time Leonidas was 20 and became an eiren in the ranks of the Spartan Hebontes, Cleomenes had begun marshalling forces and diplomats to check the power of both Thebes and Athens. It is possible that the young Leonidas played a role in this politicking over the next 10 years or so. And although I couldn't find specific mention of this in the sources, he would have been eligible to fight, and, due to his status, possibly even in the elite fighting force of the Hippeis. Another plausible scenario is that he became a kryptes, a year-long position selected for the highest performing young men in the agoge, who underwent a brief but extraordinarily intense winter, living without shoes or shelter, depending on their own skills alone to survive. They then went on to partake in the brutal purging of helots with impunity to keep the quasi-slave population from growing too much. He would have been 30, and therefore a fully fledged Spartan citizen, in 510 BCE when Cleomenes invaded Attica and deposed the Athenian tyrant Hippias. Leonidas may have accompanied him and then gained more campaign experience over the following decade in more wars against Athens and other Greek states. He'd also have been exposed to Cleomenes' fierce anti-Persian sentiments, as Medism, or sympathy towards Persia, was starting to pop up amongst Sparta's rivals. Cleomenes fought another great battle, defeating Argos in 494 BCE and massacring thousands in the sacred grove of Argus. Some say that the gods made him mad in retribution, and as his policies became more dangerous, even plotting to overthrow his co-king, Leonidas and his brother Cleombrotus had him arrested, where he died in prison, possibly by a particularly brutal form of suicide. Leonidas succeeded him to the throne and married his half-niece, Cleomenes' daughter Gorgo. He ruled for 9 years before dying at Thermopylae. So while no mention of Leonidas' military career is mentioned before Thermopylae, it's almost certain that he had fought many times before, especially since he was specifically picked to be the leader of the combined Greek forces. Itaque missi sunt delecti cum Leonida, lacae daemoniorum rege. So a band of chosen men was sent with Leonidas, king of the Spartans, as Cornelius Nepos wrote. And what kind of a king was he? Probably a brutal one, if only because of his Spartan upbringing. One citizen once said to him, "Plen tu basileoe hemon uten die perres." Apart from the fact that you're king, you're no different to us. To which Leonidas replied, "E me beltion humon emen e basileon." If I were not better than you, I would not be king. Is this arrogance, considering his birthright, or him citing his own ability, perhaps in the agoge? We also know that he was willing to knowingly die for his city. Justinus records what the oracle said when asked about the threat the Persians posed to Sparta. Initio huius bellis ciscitantibus Delphis oracula responsum fuerat aut regi Spartanorum aut urbi cadendum. When the war began, on asking the Delphic oracle, her response was, either the king of Sparta or the city will fall. And with that, Leonidas began to make preparations for his own death, going unhesitatingly unto the brink for his city. So I hope to have brought at least some perspective to the Leonidas before his exploits with the 300, placing him in the context of the Sparta he grew up in, and made an effort to fill in the gaps in our knowledge based on the events happening during his life at this time. He was a Spartan through and through, and not remembered for his policies or laws, ultimately suggesting he was a man of war, but one loyal to the last to his people.